Hello everyone. Yeah, so this video, in effect, it was kind of a build-up because we're working on the AK Girl Adventures special edition. There's going to be a little bit more on that at the end of the video. And what it comes down to is I was interested in hearing what people had to say about AK Girl, because there were some people that, because we wanted to update certain sections of the collection, so we wanted to have people have their thoughts on it, and so people like Hayley, like Susie, just who have been directly involved. But equally, I just thought it was interesting to hear from people who maybe they did fan art, maybe they've read the comics, and they're not as involved directly. And it's interesting to sort of see the different interpretations. And what I like is that there seems to be consensus, but consensus on sort of different levels. So there's the idea of her being a very fun, engaging kind of character. There's sort of the energy, the love of the look. I mean, all of those things, totally cool. Nothing wrong with that. But equally, someone who's interesting, someone who has a more vulnerable side. There's a bit more complexity to her than people might think. So that's really cool. I really like that people seem to sort of, like I say, broadly say the same things but in different ways, and that's really interesting. And it's interesting sort of seeing the different perspectives from different people, and it means a lot to me that she is someone who connects with different people, and that's great because I really like her as a character. Now, for me personally, this is interesting because I've been writing this character for a long time. This is, like I say, we're coming over a decade now. I think we're coming up to about, won't be long till it's been about 15 years, and it's crazy. And in that time, I would say the character has developed. So obviously, we have the original webcomics, and now Reynard City Chronicles. And I think what the major difference is, I think when I first wrote her, I think she was a bit too brash, a bit too kind of wanting to prove herself and be in your face. Whereas I think now we've been able to kind of balance that out in that she is confident, she is energetic, she's got that kind of sort of improv performer quality to her, that she wants to prove herself, she's out there and she's enthusiastic, but there is that other side to her. She, like I say, she is vulnerable, she has been through a lot, and there is that element of projection and sort of being very outwardly confident but having to deal with a lot. And the idea of kind of mental focus being a requirement and having to kind of get through that process in order to sort of tap into the power and everything, I think it was important. But it just not just in the simple thing of powers are connected to emotions. It's kind of a bit more than that. It's weirdly enough, one of the inspirations for this, you won't believe this, was when I worked in a massage equipment shop, and so I was doing the usual thing of trying to sell a foot spa, and this woman comes in and she talks about how she used to walk barefoot over rocks, and then explained about the whole process of reflexology and the idea of the pressure points and how different things affect different points in the body. And it linked up well because initially that was kind of there before. But it was mainly because, when I used to watch cartoons as a kid, the inflation thing was this sort of thing that seemed to come up a lot. Even before I was aware that this was a thing online, for whatever reason, this would come up. And the idea of that sort of widening to kind of a holistic theory about mind affecting the body and body affecting the mind, I thought was really cool. And I like the idea as well that, a lot of the time I think with psychic characters, and this is not a knock against them because they are brilliant, people say Jean Grey, the French, from the French male multiverse. Oh dear, alright, okay. End that particular skit. So Jean Grey, very serious, and then obviously you get the sort of Dark Phoenix thing later on, and this very sort of intense sort of character. Okay, she had her funny moments as well. Oh, Gambit don't like her cooking. Okay, calm it, mate, calm it. And yeah, and I kind of like the idea of sort of taking sort of like the rogue or the Jubilee type characters who are a bit more, I mean, again, had more kind of under the surface going on than I think their characters would suggest sort of outwardly. But I like the idea of like giving the psychic powers to that character and sort of see like how they'd handle it. And but the thing is, like, whilst Vibes can be brash, whilst she can not always think things through, again, ironic, I think there is something about it in that if she makes a mistake, she is like the first one to say, yeah, that was a mistake, and that she does want to make up for it, and even if she doesn't always get it right, she's always trying, and there is decent. I think the important thing is she's decent. Like, she might screw up, but she is at heart someone who's trying to get it right all the time, and that she is driven, she is trying to do what's right. It's just the way she does it is different from Sal and Guillermo, who are a bit more serious. We're going to talk a bit more about that next week, because again, you kind of can't talk about one without their relationship with the others, really. And like another aspect to it, which I think Hayley and Holly do it really well with the voice acting, is that there's an element of kind of a big sister, little sister relationship, in that AK Girl is really enthusiastic. She's really, like, she is always kind of ginning people up. But equally, like, when she fights. So in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, for example, like the different characters. So the one played, I'm sorry, I forget names, but the one played by Zhang Ziyi, who's like the young upstart character. Like, you see it in the fighting that she's very sort of impish, and like the way she physically moves is full of kind of energy and boisterousness, whereas Michelle Yeoh and Chow Yun-fat are kind of more measured, and the personality is reflected in the fighting. And I always thought that was amazing, and I loved how they did that. And I think I like that element. I also like in, say, something like Kung Fu Hustle, like the whole, like that combined with sort of Looney Tunes wackiness. Oh my gosh, I mean, both those films are wonderful, but for completely different reasons. Anyway, kind of getting off the point. See, again, kind of not similar. I mean, I think sometimes people will sort of say, like, you know, how much of you is in the characters, and inevitably there's a bit. I would say with me specifically, I would say it's kind of around about university age, comedy society. She's, like, as I say, kind of like she's more of a performer. And I think part of that was me at that time, but I think over the years, I think the characters have developed a bit more independently, so you can, like I say, you can pinpoint, like, Sonic and other influences that kind of tie into it as well. But, yeah, I think overall, I don't know, I mean, it sounds cliche to sort of say, like, that, like, these characters have kind of developed independently, but in a weird way they have, because it's not just me that's worked on these characters. I think that's the thing that people forget, because I think each time an artist comes on board, they put, like, their bit into it. So Nicholas and Sid did their bit with issue 1, and then Joe did his bit with issue 2, and Emily with 3, and, you know, so on and so forth. And each time there's that extra layer to it. And then, like I say, Hayley, with her performance, there's an added, like the way she sort of used like the voice work, and sort of, I like the fact that she has like the Essex accent fits with her. Like, there's, again, it kind of works in that the energy that's in the voice contrasts with Sal. Like I say, Sal, who's a bit more sort of upright, and like, I think she's one of the characters, like, if I was going to think sort of backstory wise, like, if she did have an accent, it was, I wouldn't go so far as to say drilled out of her, but there is very much a sort of stage school kid element to Wonder Vixen, but we'll get to that next week. And obviously, again, we will talk about throwing this out there. So yeah, before I sort of finish off this little bit, so AK Girl Adventures is coming soon. What can you expect from this? I'm going to be adding a few extra elements to it. So there's going to be more art from people who have previously submitted art on things like DeviantArt and so forth. There's going to be, you know, a little bit of sort of tightening here and there. So some bits that I would argue I didn't particularly need or could do with a bit of updating. We're going to do that. But yeah, the core of it is still going to be there. So like the main stories, so like the Balloon Boy and No Going Back and all the rest of it are going to be in there, and it's, you know, a chance to kind of read that and basically kind of get a taster of the character, get an idea, and equally, hopefully, as I say, if you enjoy reading it, then you go on to read Rainbow City Chronicles and you've got that kind of extra bit in your back pocket, really, because it's nice to kind of have something, and you could argue that, you know, like those individual issues are on the website. True, but there are, like I said, there are going to be extra elements that aren't going to be available on the website, and plus, I don't know, there is something about having a collection as well that I really like. So that's that. So final thing before I head off, I will try and remember this to go in the description. But yeah, we want to hear your opinion on Wonder Vixen. Want to know what she represents to you, because you need to say I'm gonna talk about my bit of it, but I am interested in what you have to say, and yeah, we'll go from there. Much love. Bye.